Hi, my name is Brenda Titus, and I'm a professional hypnotist in Orange County, California. For information about me and my program, including in-person sessions, please feel free to go to my website, ochypnotherapy.com. Today's Thoughts from the Hypnosis Office is a part 2 to putting overthinking to rest. So if you haven't seen the first part of putting overthinking to rest, I definitely recommend that you go back and you check that out. And today we'll be going on to the second part. So I work with a lot of people who admit that they are overthinkers, and it's not really why they have come to see me, but it's usually listed as one of the challenges that we are working through. So I'm talking about this with people pretty much all week long. And then like attracts like, and I work with a lot of people who, process things very similarly to myself as well. I think that there's a combination of people who are more introspective tend to be attracted to the kind of work that I do, right? Thinking about, learning about themselves and not really self-help, but really processing challenges in our lives. I think that I work with a lot of introverts as well, and so it tends to be a pattern. So like I said, so if you're watching out there and thinking, well, I do that too, you are not alone. Trust me. I've worked with hundreds of, 700 clients, and it is a very common issue. And, and you might know other people who are overthinkers, or because it tends to be maybe a particular personality type that lends to that. Sometimes people might feel like the black sheep in their family because they are the ones who are, deep in thinking about things. And so they might feel like they're, or maybe a little bit more emotional and sensitive. So they might feel separate or different from their family as well. So that is also part of how people ultimately find me. So kind of good to know. Now, I really thought about this, and last week I talked about when I get my inspired thinking, and as I was running through this, it was kind of, I got off of my treadmill and I said, oh my gosh, I have this idea and all the different things I wanted to share. I mean, just Post-it notes was how I was doing it, and big felt tip pens, because that's how I can see the best with my eye issues. So, but one of the things, and like I said, these are themes that I notice from my clients, but I did also kind of realize for myself as well, is that one of the things, if we start going into that more depressive state with our overthinking, or even just the things that are going on in our lives, is that one of the challenges is that what would be best would be to talk about our challenges, right? It's why some people love going to therapy, or sitting around having coffee with their friends, or talking to somebody else, getting help, getting assistance, talking it out. Actually, sometimes just literally being, whether it's in the office here with clients, or myself with my husband, or with a friend, just kind of running through something and saying it out loud, all of a sudden you can see the wheels turning and everything coming together. So sometimes, actually, quite frankly, verbalizing it, getting it out of here, and then out of here, can make a really big difference, and can actually put that overthinking to rest, or put the challenge to rest. We can, process things in a different way if we can talk it out and talk it through. Now, I admit, though, that I don't do that as well as I should. My friends all the time say, well, you can come to me if you need me. And I say, I know. I'm very thankful for my wonderful friends and family who would be there in an instant if I asked for help, if I told them that I was struggling. And I know that for so many of my clients as well. However, I realized that I mentioned in my last video about the Eeyore effect. And I realized that sometimes, because I don't want to bring people down, and as much as they say, it's okay. Or, my clients say it to me. They say, I don't want to bring you down. I say, it's okay. It's my job. I'm here to help you with it. Let's get it out. And I know, obviously, I have plenty of people who would be there. Sometimes, though, and in a future video, I'll be talking about this, when it's kind of that challenge after challenge after challenge, and it's kind of like, oh, I can't, burden people with one more thing. So that is, especially at a certain stage of life. And that then really is a really important time to seek a professional who you can walk through some of those big things with. Now, the other part, though, is that some people don't have somebody that they feel that they can trust or that they can get that support from when it comes to challenges, or even just, whatever's going on in their head that they need to talk it out with. Again, that is a really good time to have professional support as well. But having personal support, knowing that you have somebody who loves you, cares for you, and believes in you and is there for you, that is actually part of our fundamental need. I talk about this all the time, that actually it literally hits our sense of safety and security. Because if there's somebody who loves us and would keep us safe and support us and protect us, if there's an emergency or we need, survival kinds of things, then we would have that. And I kind of take it back to the old tribal days. Well, if somebody's going to feed us, clothe us, and shelter us, and loves us, then they're going to keep us in the tribe. But if we become the black sheep, if we don't feel that we have that support, or for some people, honestly, sometimes my clients don't have that support, then it can be very scary. And that actually ignites a primal part of ourselves, because that primal part of us knows if we get kicked out of the tribe or we have no one that will help us, that could become a literal survival issue. So kind of interesting how some of those things work inside of us, and how I think about that from a hypnosis perspective. Now, this is especially important to recognize for people who, there's different types of families or clients that come from types of families that I have experienced over the years. And obviously, sometimes when we're dealing with, outright abuse, then of course, then the person has already been taught or has already learned not to go to family members, and sometimes not to talk outside of the family either. And so then they just really aren't able to talk those things through. Of course, people who are already feel like the black sheep, like I said, that they feel like they can't talk to people, even though maybe they could and it would be fine. They won't actually get rejected, but it's that fear inside of them. Now, I do work with a lot of people for one reason or another that their experience has been that maybe their parents especially, or their family, because that is where we learn a lot of these things, where their needs were minimized. Well, their needs as well as just who they are, or their feelings would be minimized or diminished. And so they already have kind of inside of themselves, well, I'm not going to go to other people because I'm going to be diminished, I'm going to be minimized. My problems really aren't that big of a deal compared to whatever else is going on with other people. So sometimes people might end up, really not seeking support from other people for things like that. And so that's where the overthinking begins, because they kind of say, well, all I got is me. And unfortunately, the reality is that they have themselves, but they don't necessarily have the greatest of foundation for being able to think things through in the healthiest of ways, and to process things in the healthiest of ways. Now, of course, that's what I love being able to do, is help teach people understand what their base patterns are, so that instead of bearing it all for themselves, they can find the access to support, to love, to people in their lives, and by overcoming the challenge that was keeping them from doing that. I also then, by overcoming the challenges associated with the overthinking part, then we can actually work towards a more beneficial process in quote thinking and using our internal problem solving skills. And that brings me back to my assignment. Actually, first I had one more note that I wanted to add, because in the end, what I really want to do with my clients is encourage them to be their best coach, and have the best inner dialogue, because nobody knows them like themselves. And so as they learn better about themselves through the hypnosis process, then they can actually be more aware of what they need, and to be able to then either get support or be able to do effective problem solving. So last week I did the assignment, which was, what are the things that ignite your thinking and that are helpful in terms of problem solving? And problem solving can be a variety of problems. Now, I mentioned for myself that especially getting on my treadmill and doing my exercise, and some of that is, all right, I'm starting my day on in a positive way, right? I'm doing my exercise, it feels good. Of course, the endorphins are running, and I've usually got, positive, coach, fun music going on. And so it is a really good time for me to kind of be mulling things over, but in a good, excitatory way. Now, the challenge is sometimes that, then I've got to start making notes, and then it takes me away from the workout. So I try to not deliberately do that very often. Some other ways, of course, people who do morning meditation, morning self-hypnosis. Actually, I learned several years, it's called Morning Pages. It's from the Artist's Way. The book is called The Artist's Way, and it's literally, you just get up and you journal 3 to 5 pages every morning, period. Now, a client reminded me yesterday that when we journal as opposed to think, it slows us down and actually aids in the processing. So I confess I stopped journaling a long time ago because I was like, well, I just think so fast that then I'm kind of whoosh, it's done. So noted. I will take that under advisement from him. I thought that was a good piece of information. And kind of the key is that you're getting it out. You're just, there it goes. So the morning pages, just sitting down, just writing, get it out, right. That is actually also very helpful. So exercise can be a good time to get your mind thinking, writing, meditation, self-hypnosis. Sometimes walking, well, I guess that's the treadmill. Being in nature, I guess I'll go with that. Being outside and walking, not necessarily exercise walking, and so you'll notice that we're talking about giving ourselves time and space for ourselves to do that. And sometimes then that helps give the brain the realization and understanding, I am giving myself this time right now to work through something, to do the problem solving, to think things through, so that then we can put it to rest during the time that it's not effective for us to be running through things. So the next part is, I said on my assignment last week, what are the things that lead you to circle the drain? Go into that overthinking. Now, I said last week that, the social media, so you start kind of like scrolling, doom scrolling, oh, this thing, that thing, getting sucked into the news, getting sucked into other people's problems, all those things. So social media, the news, those are definitely things that can kind of start us on that path of going in a direction that isn't necessarily going to be beneficial for our thought processes. I had a client last week who admitted, I said, well, when is this coming up for you that then your mind starts to do that shift, and then it's going into all these places that are not beneficial? And right away he said, oh, at work. And I said, oh, oops, well, as it turned out, we also had to really acknowledge that he is not satisfied with his job, and it was creating too many, it was boring, it wasn't fulfilling, it wasn't enlivening for him anymore. And so in that opportunity of it being boring, he was starting to overthink all of the other problems in his life. So So that is one time. I work with a lot of people who have driving anxiety, and then they admit, or one of the things we have to deal with is, oh shoot, that was part of the time that they were getting into their overthinking, and it was all the doom and gloom behind the wheel because we're kind of sitting there. So while we're driving, that is also a problematic time to get sucked into our overthinking. And so those are just a few that I wanted to be aware of. I'm sure that you can come up with some other ones. Now, of course, what I want to be sure that in the end, my assignment now is for you to set your intention, set your priority on a daily basis, that you do at least one of the things that is going to ignite your positive mindset. So, and right away, whether it's that you get up and you do your morning stretches, that's my other one actually. Morning stretches, your morning meditation, your morning reading, your exercise. Literally, my exercise is on my to-do list every day, right at the top, because I know if I don't do it right at the top, it just literally sets everything in motion. So those are some things for you to think about. The other part is being very clear with your intention to avoid the things that are going to send you to circle down the drain, because the whole point of this is to be aware of the things that are just going. Now, of course, obviously can't necessarily avoid driving, and you can't necessarily avoid your job so I would add that if those things are what you realize are the challenges, then it sounds like that's something to work on, because obviously we can't avoid them. Might need to amplify and do more of the things that are going to ignite and enliven the positive thinking, and be more aware of what is causing problems in these other parts of your life, especially the ones that are unavoidable, truly unavoidable. And of course, thinking about processing and working through why those other things are so challenging, so that they don't have to be challenging anymore. And so with that, I really thank you for joining me for putting overthinking to rest. I'm sure that this will not be the last time that we talk about overthinking, but it is going to be, I'm going to put this topic to rest for a while, and I will be coming back soon with new topics. And with that, thank you so much. This is Brenda Titus at OC Hypnotherapy, wishing you a wonderful week.